Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today's topic is all about intermediary hobby games. This idea comes to me courtesy of Revenant, who essentially said, how do you go from being a beginner board gamer to being an advanced gamer? And I thought that's a very good question, because I've talked a lot about starter games where we talk about Ticket to Ride and we talk about Tzolk'in and Settlers of Catan and all of these types of things, but then what's after that? What do you play afterwards? And obviously it depends on what you enjoy, what you like, what you don't like, but essentially I wanted to go with what's a little bit more complex, adds a little bit of new flavor and stuff, and most importantly gives you a lot more good solid replay value. That's it for me personally, but as always I want to know what you guys have to say. What do you consider to be sort of transitionary games? Those games that are in between the starter games and those really highly advanced ones. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because you know I love to hear it all. But that said, we're going to get started right off with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Five Tribes. This is a game I'm really terrible at, but it works extremely well as a nice intermediary board game. It combines some elements of Mancala as well as a little bit of worker placement style, and you also have to have a decent amount of long-term strategy. In the end, you're talking about territory control, you're talking about meeples that can perform specific actions, you're also talking about resource management, all sorts of different stuff all rolled into one, and on a shared modular randomized board every single time. So you get a lot of solid replay value out of it, you get a lot of decent strategy out of it. It is a little bit simplistic as far as the other games on the list, but it is more complex than most of the games you'd see on a starter board game list. Primarily it's on the bottom of the list because I'm just really bad at it though. Five Tribes, my number 5. At number 4, I've got Orlean, a game that's about a relatively common theme of building up a medieval city. In this particular case, it combines elements of resource management and worker placement, but is relatively unique in that the workers are very specific. That is to say, you don't have a general worker that does everything, but instead you have knights, you have monks, you have scientists, you have farmers who each do a very specific thing. And that means that if you want to have a knight, you got to pay for a knight. If you want a farmer, you pay for a farmer. And each one will give you very specific aspects. They'll give you additional actions. They'll allow you to trade. They will allow you to gain resources, all of this kind of thing. And so you have to balance out what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, as well as make sure that you potentially don't run out of stock of all of these. It's a great game. It's a little bit of a higher tier worker placement game, and that's why it's lower on the list, but it's still wonderful and has tremendous replay value. Orlean, my number 4. At number 3, I have Istanbul. Not Constantinople, I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself, where essentially this is another worker placement game that is unique in you have a stack of workers that are physically on top of one another, and as you move across the board, you're essentially leaving your assistants behind. Eventually, you're going to collect up the assistants, and they're going to get you whatever particular resources are on those particular tiles. You also have your master merchant who's able to get better stuff. So the goal of this is not only do you want to collect specific resources along the way, but you also have a physical aspect where you're moving across the board and essentially dropping the workers as you go. So it's a little bit unique in that sense, in that you have to have kind of a pathfinding aspect to the game. And it's a much simpler game in terms of the actual worker placement that's going on, so that's why it's a little bit higher on the list. Lots and lots of fun again. It's a relatively quick game compared to some of the others as well. Istanbul, my number 3. At number 2, I've got Eldritch Horror, a game that I've touted relatively frequently as kind of a scaled down version of Arkham Horror. This is based off of the Lovecraftian mythos, however you want to pronounce it, where effectively the old ones are about to re-emerge and cooperatively you have to stop them. I love this game because you have a lot of character advancement capabilities. You've got the idea of resource management in terms of items as well as other things that you have to collect throughout the game. and you have kind of a scope and style similar to Pandemic. So it works really nicely as a step up from that, in that this particular game gives you more complexity in terms of your characterization, and you also have a little bit of a more unforgiving game style where you've got different events that are going to occur in different places, you've got monsters you have to fight in particular ways or with particular weapons and all of that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun and makes a great intermediary cooperative game. Eldritch Horror, my number 2. At number 1, I've got Terraforming Mars. This is a great example of having resource management coupled with engine building. So engine building is not exactly something you would want to introduce brand new players to, but after they've gotten used to some of the more simple games and they're used to sort of thinking strategically of where do I want to go, what do I want to do, engine building is a good next step, because that means that now you can think, okay, how do I want to plan out my entire game? Because you're going to start off with a particular corporation. It has a specific way that it works and what it can do. So can I build off of that? Am I going to deviate from it? What do I need to do? In addition to the fact that you've got your resource management, you also need to think about when you're going to place specific tiles, where you're going to place them, all of this kind of stuff. Not to mention the base game on its own has some great replayability, in addition to some wonderful expansions, particularly Turmoil, which was just released, is a great expansion that adds a lot of political intrigue to the game. Terraforming Mars, by far my number 1. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite intermediary board games. Now, obviously, for me, a lot of these are really worker placement and kind of build up sort of games, because that's what I see as intermediary mechanics. Now, obviously, there are a lot of games that could fit this particular bill, and you could even think of specific series or specific mechanics or any number of different things. So please let me know what your personal thoughts are in the comments below. What are your favorite intermediary games to introduce to relatively new players who are familiar with hobby gaming, all of that kind of stuff. Of course, as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really cool ways. And also, if you are still in quarantine, please stay safe, please stay inside. Hopefully, we will be able to get through this in not too much longer. But with that, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.